Welcome to this last video, third video on making a basic ruler. And what I'm going to do here is do the final few little tweaks that are going to allow this to be laser cut here with our facilities. So what I've done is I've brought in the CAD file here that allow me to make this ruler right here. So we've got the same size. It's a 20 centimeter ruler with a 5mm margin on the end, which I've just put a fillet on so it's a nice smooth corner. We've got the scale here from 0 to 20 with half centimeter and millimeter markings. All the numbers are in place. We've also got some graphics, which I looked at very briefly. I'm not going to do graphics like these, and some text. So let's just come back to my CAD file here. Now, first of all, I'm going to look at what I've got down here. So let's just zoom in a little bit closer here and see what we have got. You'll notice effectively it's the same thing, but this has been mirrored. Now I'm going to select this and I'm going to flip it around by clicking on this little mirror tool, and now we've got the 0 to 20 all laid out. And you'll notice that I've got a blue line. In fact, no, let's look at the millimeter and centimeter markings first. I'll tell you why I flipped it at the end. The millimeter and centimeter markings here, which are actually slightly off. I can't believe this ruler is actually off the grid slightly. So when I brought it in here, I had step lock turned on and it is slightly off. That's really annoying me there. Anyway, I'll have to just work with it. But all of these centimeter and millimeter markings are red, and the reason for that is because our laser cutter engraves into the material if the color is red. So I need to select with the selection tool a bounding box around the centimeter, half centimeter and millimeter markings, and I'm going to change those to be red. Okay, now notice here that I did not select this external profile here. I'm going to put grid lock on here so nothing gets messed up. That external profile is a complete rounded corner rectangle. Let's bring that back with the undo button. Now, we have it set up so that our laser cutter does engrave black fills. Now, if I have a look at the numbers I've got here, if I come to line color up here, you notice the line color is black. That will be ignored. But the fill is solid black, and that means that these numbers will be engraved. And we do that because that means that these images will be converted into black and white. Well, they're already, or grayscale, they're already effectively grayscale images, and they will also laser engrave. If we turned off black, fill, and grave, then it means we wouldn't be able to engrave these images. Now I'm also going to point out here as well that our faces here are looking very, very strange, and this is because I've applied a photo effect to these that I know is very effective at making faces look super realistic when they are engraved. That is going to be a separate set of tutorials which I've done already. And those videos have allowed me to create these images of Milu the dog, my dog there. So basically what I've got here are different, I think that's the original photograph there. I've applied different effects, and that's the best one down there. So I've applied the same technique for Milu the dog as I have here for our faces. And as I say, that's a separate video on my channel. So check that out if you want to know how. Let's just get rid of that there. Let's come back to here. You'll notice the blue line around there's a blue line around the outside here. This blue line indicates that the ruler is going to be cut out. So to confirm, red is engrave for lines. Black fill will engrave as well into the surface of the material, and then the outline here, black, will do nothing. I need to make it blue, and it disappears here. It disappears because my colleague's picture is overlapping that line. So even though you can't see the blue line, that will still cut. Okay, so there's two ways we can do this. I could select the outline here and I could just make that outline blue. Okay, that's probably the easy way to do it. But the way that I do this is I actually get the contouring tool. So this is the contour tool here, tool B6. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to leave it as it is with a 0.5 millimeter spacing, and you'll see what happens at the moment. I'm going to go to graphical and I'm going to click, and I'm going to make sure that my color here is going to be this blue. This blue at the bottom is the one that cuts, and this red is the one that engraves. Don't choose any of the colors up here. You work with these colors at the bottom. and I'm going to click on the outside. That's where I want to click. Now that has a 0.5 centimeter or 5mm spacing, so that's not what I want. But you get the idea of how it works. It contours around the outline. I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to come back to the contour tool, and I'm going to put the contour spacing to 0. I want to do a blue contour around the ruler, which is going to follow the outline of the ruler. Now I'm going to do this wrong again. Now notice there's a pointy hand there to locate where the contour wants to go, and what I want to do is click clearly on the outside edge of the ruler. But what lots of people do is they think it has to be mega close, and they end up just clicking on the inside edge. And look what happens if I do that. It contours the internal edge of the ruler, and it contours around all of my millimeter and centimeter markings. Now if I pick this up and move it with grid lock turned on, look what that generates. This blue kind of cutout that does everything. That's not what we want. So I don't want to cut these millimeter and centimeter markings out. I want to just engrave it into the surface. So let's delete that. Let's come back down again with the wheel mouse. Contour tool, 0 spacing in the blue, and I need to click clearly on the outside, not way out here, but close to the line, but make sure it's on the external profile. That does my contour there, and that looks perfect. Okay, so that is pretty much ready to laser cut, but there is one more tiny little modification I'm going to do, which was actually mentioned to me by a student. He said, Mr. Shaw, I found that when I'm drawing things or drawing lines with my ruler, because of the engravings of these millimeter and centimeter markings, it feels rough as my pencil passes over it. So what I'm going to do with this design up here is I'm going to make it so that the centimeter and millimeter markings are staggered slightly back from the edge. I'm going to come to step lock. I'm going to put my Y spacing now to 0.05 millimeters, so centimeters, which is 0.5 millimeter. I'm going to select all of these markings. I don't think I'll select my numbers, and I'm going to pull this down 0.5 millimeter. Now what I'm doing right now is I'm looking down here at the relative grid references. I'm going to bring it down 0.5 millimeter, and I want the X relative to be 0 and the Y relative grid reference to be negative 0.05. That's just pulled it back 0.5 centimeter from the edge, and that means I can clearly see my millimeter and centimeter markings, but they're not going to be having a rough edge against the edge of the ruler when I laser cut it. Now there was one final thing I needed to do here. Let's come back to gridlock again. Let's scroll down here. Remember that when I brought this design in, it was mirrored, and the reason for that is because if I come back to my ruler here, if I engrave straight onto the top of the ruler, number one, you can see in the light reflecting there that it gives a bit of a matte finish. It's rough. Yeah, I'm scraping my finger against it there. It's rough, and it doesn't look quite as effective, I find, as if I engrave on the back of the ruler. Now I've got this nice glossy finish, and that I think looks really, really cool. So notice that at the moment the engraving is on the back. This is how I want it to look when I'm using it, and it goes from 0 to 20. But if I turn it over, this is how I want to engrave it. It goes from 20 to 0. So what I need to do in my CAD file is select my ruler, click on this little two-headed arrow, and that's going to mirror it with this vertical mirror line. So now when I laser engrave, it's going to go from 20 down to 0, but then when I turn my ruler over, it's going to have the glossy front face, and it's going to be from 0 to 20, which is what I want. So let's put it back. So 20 to 0. That is now ready for me to go ahead and have laser cut. I'm going to pause the video at this point. I'm going to go ahead and laser cut this right now, and then we'll see how it looks. So I've just come back from the laser cutter, and this is what I have. It doesn't look too impressive at the moment, but what I'm going to do is take this to the sink, give it a wash here with just some water and a little bit of soap, and then on the back here there's a piece of plastic I'm going to remove, and that was left on to protect the back edge here, so the back of the acrylic didn't get burnt by the beam. And then we'll see how it looks. So back in a second. So back, there it is. I've given it a wash, so you can see it looks better already. It still looks a little bit rough though, but that's the protective plastic. So hopefully if I peel this away, then what we have here is a mighty fine looking ruler. Pop that in the bin. There you go. So I'm really liking the way that the base came out here. The shadow kind of spoils it a little bit because we lose the definition of the edge, so I would normally go for an image without a shadow. That's something to bear in mind. And as for the classical guitar here, let's just bring that cat file back in again. That profile there didn't really work, so I'm thinking that a silhouette of a guitar might have been more successful, but the strings kind of work to a degree there. But that's looking nice. Definitely the numbers and the ruler worked well. And whereas this ruler here, definitely if I put that to the microphone, you can probably hear my finger rubbing across the edge there. This one here, yeah, because I staggered the millimeter and centimeter markings back from the edge of the ruler, but just by 0.5 millimeter, you can hardly see it, and certainly from the top there, it's not going to affect the usability of the ruler, but that looks really, really cool. In fact, perhaps if I put it on this walnut wood here, you'll really see how that looks there. Yeah, that's looking really nice. Okay, so there you go. Enjoy making your rulers.